Greetings, BookTube. I'm Ryn Jackson, and you're watching Bundles and Books, a channel where I talk about books while playing Stardew Valley and fixing up the community center. Welcome back to me talking about battling my consumerism as it relates to books. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the ideas I have for spending money or not spending money, hopefully, on books in 2021. I'm also going to be talking about how much money I spent on books in 2020. As well as talking about how much money I could have spent on books in 2020 if I hadn't utilized my library as much as I did. If you saw my 2020 TBR video, linked down below, or you've been watching this channel for any length of time, then you probably already know that I try not to spend money on books. And you probably also know that the keyword here is try, and that this is not something I have ever succeeded at. I utilize my library as much as possible, and I'm privileged to live in an area that heavily invests in their libraries, so it's rare that my library doesn't have what I want. I always have links in the video description for US libraries that allow out-of-state or out-of-country individuals to check out audiobooks or ebooks online, and I encourage you to look into what library resources are available in your area. If you live in the US, you are almost certainly already paying for a library with your tax dollars, so you might as well use it. In fact, to get an idea of how valuable a library card can be, I calculated how much money I would have spent on books in 2020 if I purchased every book I read instead of checking it out. So you may know from previous videos that I have spent $168.70 on 19 books this year. That averages out to about $14.06 a month, or $8.44 a book. This price per book is much higher than my average for the 5 previous years because one of the books I purchased this year was from the Folio Society, and I have no regrets. So while I do get most of my books from the library, I don't get all of my books from the library. I still occasionally buy books. But what if I got none of my books from the library? To figure that out, I put every book I read from the library into an Amazon cart. I put whatever the cheapest physical format available today was into my cart, so some books were mass market, some were trades, and some were hardcover. It just depended on what was available at the time. Incidentally, today I also learned that you can only have 50 items in your Amazon cart at one time. So my first cart came to $702.64 for 50 books. My second cart came to $604.03 for 50 books, and my third and final cart came to $36.37 for 3 books. That's a total of $1,343.04 for 103 books, which averages out to around $111.92 per month, or $13.04 per book. Add to that my total of $169.70 for the books I did buy, and we're looking at $1,511.74 for the year. That's around $125.98 per month, or $11.45 per book. Around 3 times what I've actually spent on books in the last 5 years combined. And I already feel like I spend too much money on books as it is. And I am on a mission to read all the books I've purchased in the last few years in an effort to stop me from buying more books. I started the challenge of reading every book I purchased this year before January 1st of 2021, about midway through the year. So for 2021, I've set myself the goal of reading anything I might purchase in 2021, plus everything I did purchase in 2019. My hope was, when I set myself the challenge of reading everything I purchased in 2020 during 2020, that I would learn something about my purchasing habits and my reading habits and the intersection between them. And I did. The first lesson I learned is how much time it takes me to read a book, and that when I was buying books on sale to save for rainy days, I way overestimated how many books I would need for that. I actually had to do quite a bit of planning and work to read everything I bought in 2020. Granted, I didn't start working on it until June when I finished my first challenge of 2020, but it still took me until the end of November to get everything I'd purchased read. And I only bought 19 books in 2020. I have over 40 books to read from purchases in 2019. It required me prioritizing reading those books. It wasn't an organic process of me picking them up when I wanted to read them, which brings me to the second thing that I learned. I'm a pretty serious mood reader, much more than I thought I was. my interest in a book can wane very quickly. As new books are released or I learn about titles I haven't heard of before, my priority list for what I want to read changes. Not only that, but my tastes are always evolving, and what I wanted from and needed from books in January of 2020 was very different from what I need and want from books today. When I set myself the challenge of actually reading all the books I purchased in a calendar year during that calendar year, these were the types of lessons I was hoping to learn. I'm glad that I came out of this challenge having learned something to guide my future purchases. What I didn't take into consideration was that participation in the challenge itself would also change how I commercially engaged with books. I recently had an important experience with purchasing a book that gave me an idea for controlling my spending in 2021. During their Black Friday sale, Amazon sent me a push notification that Lakewood by Megan Giddings was on sale for $1.99. Lakewood was on my radar, so I was actually considering buying it. But then the thought popped into my head that if I bought it now, I'd have to read it right away as part of my 2020 TBR challenge. And I didn't want to read it right away. And then I thought, well, if I don't want to read it right away, then why am I buying it? I just need to wait and get a copy from the library. So instead of buying it, I tagged it to a shelf on my library app and decided to just ignore the notification. And it worked. It was still on sale when I started organizing my thoughts for this video, and I honestly don't care. So if you're struggling with how many books you purchase, or you simply want to buy fewer books in 2021 than you did in 2020, challenge yourself to read all the books you already own. Knowing how long it takes to get through a dozen books compared to how long it takes to buy a dozen books can be a significant deterrent from impulse buys. In fact, it might be worthwhile to calculate how long it would take you to read all the books you already own. In my case, I read an average of 10 books a month. According to Amazon, I have purchased, in quotes, 4,652 books for my Kindle. Now, it would take me almost 39 years to read all of those books at my current speed. Now, the very vast majority of these books, and I mean over 90%, were quote unquote purchased for $0. And they came into my collection via Kindle Daily Deals websites. So I don't feel any desire or obligation to read most of them. Since I've embarked on this project to not buy books and instead to read books I already own or can get from the library, I have unsubscribed from all Kindle Daily Deal websites and emails. That helps a lot in cutting down on these sorts of purchases. I have since figured out how many books I actually purchased, as in spent money on, over the last 5 years, and that number is much smaller than 4,600. In the past 5 years, I've purchased 201 books. I've had my Kindle for 10 years, so let's just double that and say that 10% of the books on my purchase list, or 465 of them, I spent actual money on. If I read nothing other than these books, and my reading speed does not change, it will still take me almost 4 years to read everything I've spent money on. And that's just the time investment. That does not take into consideration the very real financial investment. Over the last 5 years, there was only 1 year where my average price per book wasn't between $2 and $3. So these 465 books represent an investment of somewhere between $930 and $1,395. That's a lot of money. So not only do these impulse bargain buys add up to a significant time investment, they also add up to a significant financial investment. And these are all the things that I was thinking in the wake of the Lakewood incident. So I hypothesized that if I could move beyond that initial impulse to buy a book, I would probably lose the desire to buy that particular book altogether. And instead of telling myself I can't or shouldn't buy books in 2021, I'm going to tell myself I can, but offer an incentive not to. So what's the plan for 2021? First, I'm going to read every book I purchased in 2019. Second, I'm going to read every book I may purchase in 2021. And third, I've decided to set myself a monthly book budget for 2021. The twist is that for every month I don't use any of that budget, I'll add double that amount to a savings account, which I can spend on anything I want in 2022. So essentially, this is an exercise in delayed gratification. The carrot for the stick that is making myself read everything I buy in 2021 in 2021. So what's a reasonable monthly book budget? Obviously, it's an amount that I can afford and makes sense for me given my personal financial obligations. So whatever amount I landed on would be pretty arbitrary and personal, but I did try to take some things into consideration. The first was the cost of an Audible Premium Plus membership, which is $14.95 a month, or a Libro FM membership, which is $14.99 a month. Based on those prices, $15 a month felt reasonable. On the other hand, it was almost twice what I actually spent on books per month in 2020, and I really wanted to spend less money, not more. So next I considered $10 a month because that's about what a subscription to Kindle Unlimited or Scribd costs. That felt a bit better, but I didn't like that I was only considering commercial sources. One of the libraries with a larger collection that offers out-of-area cards is the Brooklyn Public Library. The fees for their out-of-area card average out to less than $5 a month. That's a very reasonable amount, but I wondered if it was too low to be interesting or provide an adequate incentive. So in the end, I decided to take advantage of having so many options and just average out all the fees and use that as my number, which feels somewhat scientific, but is actually just completely arbitrary still. So the average of all those amounts worked out to be $10.82 a month. For simplicity's sake, I'm rounding it up to $11 a month. So my monthly book budget for 2021 will be $11 a month. Now that I know the amount, how exactly will this challenge work? So each month I'll give myself $11 to spend on books. If I do not spend any of that money on books, then I will double that amount and carry it into the next month. So starting January 1st, 2021, I can spend $11 on books. If I don't spend a penny of that during the month of January, that $11 and a bonus $11 will be added to the February budget. So if I didn't spend anything in January, I'd start February with $33 to spend on books. The $11 from January, the $11 from February, and the bonus $11 from not spending money in January. If I don't spend any of my book budget at all in 2021, I'll have set aside $264 between the monthly budget and the potential bonuses, which is a pretty good chunk of change to have on hand for book shopping. As an additional delayed gratification bonus, I've decided that if I make it to January 2022 without spending any money on books, I'll double that amount, which means that if I don't spend any money on books in 2021, I'll have $528 to spend on books in January of 2022. And what would I do with a $500 book shopping spree? Honestly, I have no idea. I'd probably pay for access to some library systems other than my own, like the Brooklyn Public Library I mentioned previously. Possibly, I would subscribe to Libro FM in 2022 to get quicker access to audio versions of more popular books and take some pressure off my library hold shelf. Maybe use a good chunk of it to order graphic novels from my local comic shop. They offer 20% off all graphic novel orders all year round. And graphic novels are expensive, and there are a few that I've read that I'd like to add to my shelves to share with my household and other friends and family. And I would be supporting a local family-owned business, which is nice. I could make another Folio Society purchase if there's something I'm really drawn to, but that's more than I've spent on books in the last 4 years combined, so I really don't know what I would do. I could use it to purchase a nice tablet to read the digital graphic novels that are available for free from my library. The best case scenario would be that I'd get to January 2022 with my $528 and decide not to spend it at all. Just leave it in that savings account indefinitely. And that's if I don't spend a penny on books in 2021, which is unlikely anyway. Because in order to ensure that I actually have $528 at the start of January 22 to spend on books, I'm going to put $44 a month into savings each month in 2021 until I mess up and spend money on books, and then I'll adjust. And just to be clear, for the purposes of this challenge, I would consider buying a book to be spending money from my wallet on a book. So if a book costs $0 and I, quote unquote, buy it, then it will not be counting as a purchase for the purposes of this financial challenge or for the reading challenge. If I use a gift card or a store credit or some other way to acquire a book that has no impact on my bank account, I would also not consider that to be spending money on a book, even though it totally is, because money is fungible and I could use those gift cards or credits on things other than books. But this is my challenge and I'm making the rules. So what do I think the major obstacles to achieving this goal are? First, my book club. If there's a monthly selection that I just can't get from the library, that will absolutely cause me to spend money. That's the biggest potential hurdle. In my book club, the host determines the theme for each month and then does the research to choose 3 books that fit that theme, which they think will appeal to the group. The other members of the group then vote on the selections on a ranked choice ballot, and a winner is chosen. The theme for January is books with winter settings. And one of the books has a 7-week hold in my library and another has a 10-week hold. It's the middle of December right now, so it's possible that I might not be able to get those books in time if either of them is the winner. So it's entirely possible that this challenge will be over in January. Secondary to that, I live in a capitalist society with a lot of pressure on spending money to engage with culture. In many ways, spending money eclipses or replaces cultural engagement. I work hard to protect myself from this aspect of our society, but I am not immune to advertising. It's entirely possible that I will succumb to it at some point this year. That's actually why I'm doing this challenge. I'm essentially trying to bribe myself into not succumbing to capitalism until some point in the future. And then hoping that by allowing time to pass between when I feel the urge to buy something and when I actually buy it, I will make better choices. Although, to be completely fair to past Ryn and her taste, she made some pretty good impulse buys in 2020. I don't think I rated anything I spent money on less than 3 stars, and most of them were 4 or 5 stars. Looking at the 2019 purchases that became my 2021 TBR, though, there are some real head scratchers, so her taste is not impeccable. So that's my plan for spending money on books in 2021. Let me know if you have set yourself a monthly book budget for 2021 and what actions you're going to take to stick to it. Tell me what books or bookish items you'd buy with $500 in the comments below. And please like this video and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I play Stardew Valley and I talk about books, so if you like either of those things, this channel may be for you. I hope you're having a wonderful week and I wish you all the best in your reading adventures.